Modern games suck. You know it. I know it. They're soulless, they're greedy, they're all the same. They just don't make them like they used to. At least that was the video that I sat down to make. I had the title, I had the thumbnail, I had the rage. I was ready to make that video. But I hit one small problem that pretty much unraveled the whole thing and the whole idea of that video. When I went looking for proof, actual evidence that games used to be better, instead, what I found was something a bit weirder, a mystery, you might even say, something that it really opened my eyes into how people think. And here it is. Every generation of gamers is completely convinced that games peaked when they were about 14. If you ask someone who grew up on the SNES, gaming died in the 90s. Ask a PS2 kid, and it's been all downhill since 2005. Ask someone born in 2005, and they're going to get super nostalgic about games from around 2015. Games, I promise you, the SNES kid would call soulless garbage. They can't all be right. The golden age of gaming cannot be simultaneously 1994, 2004, 2014. That's not a golden age, it's a moving target. And moving at exactly the speed of one thing, how old that you happen to be at the time. So the real question isn't why do modern games suck? It's why is every single one of us so certain that they do? And why does every single one of us think it's a completely different set of games? And the answer to that, as it turns out, is not really about games at all. It's about you. Specifically, it's about the slightly embarrassing things that your own brain has been doing behind your back. And we're going to get into that now. So let's start with the big thing that's probably doing most of the damage here. And it's got a name, it's extremely well documented, and once you know it, you're going to catch yourself doing it consistently. It's called rosy retrospection. The idea of rosy retrospection is really simple and a little brutal at the same time. So humans will systematically remember the past better than it actually was because we are just measurably biased. So what we'll do is we will just reliably hang on to the good bits and then quietly just bin the bad ones. And there's a beautifully simple way to prove this to yourself. When you get nostalgic about the good old days of gaming, which games do you picture? Is it Ocarina of Time? Is it Chrono Trigger? GoldenEye, sorry. These are absolute masterpieces of their generations. What we conveniently forget is that those games were absolute bangers then, and they were floating in an ocean of just forgettable, broken, licensed trash. For every classic game out there that you get nostalgic for, there were at least 50 based on a movie that nobody has thought about in 2 or 3 decades. So the psychiatrists who study this, they point out the trap perfectly. A game will basically have to be exceptional to survive the nostalgia test that you give yourself in the first place. The mediocre ones, they don't get remembered, so they don't get counted. You're literally comparing the best games of your childhood, the ones that were lovingly curated by your own memory over the last 20 years, against an entire messy pile of everything that's releasing right now, warts and all. It's a rigged fight. It's like comparing all of your favorite all-time meals to just a random Tuesday's lunch and just concluding that food used to taste better. And here's the tell that gives it away. When people actually go back and boot up the games that they didn't obsessively love, the mid-tier stuff, the 6 out of 10s, the rose tint, it just falls off almost instantly. There's clunky controls, invisible walls, the why am I lost, there isn't a map, I don't know where to go, it all just comes flooding back. The magic wasn't evenly spread across the whole era, it was concentrated into a handful of gems, and your memory has just quietly deleted the evidence of everything else. But your brain isn't lying to you exactly. I guess it's just an extremely generous memory editor. But rosy retrospection alone, it doesn't explain the around 14 years old thing, like why the golden age is always so suspiciously close to your own teenage years. And for that, we need what is probably my favourite effect in all of psychology because it explains so much more than just games. This is called the reminiscence bump. Here's the finding of the reminiscence bump. When researchers ask people of all ages to recall memories across their whole lives, the memories, they don't spread out evenly, they clump together. So there's a huge spike, there's a bump of vivid, treasured memories, and these memories are roughly from the ages of 10 to 30, but they tend to peak in the mid-teens. So decades later, those are the memories that stay the brightest, and those are the ones that come back the easiest. And here's when it gets almost a bit too on the nose. This has been studied most thoroughly with music. In one cross sectional study, researchers played people's songs across decades, and they found that the tracks that triggered the strongest memories and the biggest emotional hit and biggest emotional reactions were the ones that were popular when the listener was a teenager, when they were peaking on average around age 14. So your favorite music isn't technically your favorite because it's objectively the best music ever made. It's your favorite because you were around 14 when you heard it. And I need you to kind of sit with that because it's the exact same thing that's happening with your favorite games. So, why does this memory bump even exist? So, the leading explanation on the memory bump is something called identity formation. In your teens and your early 20s, that's when you're just trying to figure out who you are. So, the experiences that you have around then, they just get welded into your permanent sense of self. So the games that you played when you were at 14, they aren't just games that you liked. What they are actually is they're load-bearing pieces of your identity. So it's no wonder that a new game release can't compete with that. It's not really being compared to a game. It's being compared to who you are and who you were as a person back then. There's a second ingredient to this too, and that's just novelty. So, first time experiences, they will always carve out deeper memory traces than repeated ones. And just think about what that means for gaming specifically. You only get one first time stepping into a 3D world. You only get one first time that a open map is unfolded in front of you. Your one first online match. The wonder was never only about the game. It was about a whole medium being branded that was new to you, and that means all of those first times they were valuable. You're not going to be able to buy them back at any price, and once you know it, unfortunately you can't unsee it. So sorry for that. And it is genuinely a little bit sad. So let's keep moving with the video before I start crying over my old Xbox. Now, I could really just stop the video here. I could just stop it and say, yep, it's entirely nostalgia. We can wrap it all up into a nice little bow, and it would be its own kind of, its own little lie. And you'd be right to call it out and say, well, not all of that is exactly true, because some of what you're feeling isn't just a memory trick. Some of what you're feeling, it is real and it is measurable, and that's completely fair. And here's the part that has genuinely changed over time. Older games were overwhelmingly a complete thing that you bought once. You put in the cartridge and the entire game was there. You owned it, the whole thing, all of it. And modern games, they just increasingly they're not sold in this way. And it's not just a vibe. This is struck with data. One analysis of the most played games on Steam across 2010 found that by 2019, over 85% of them featured cosmetic microtransactions, and more than 70% of them contained loot boxes. I mean, that is an enormous shift in what a game fundamentally is over just, a single decade. Researchers studying this put it a little bit more bluntly than I would probably want to, but what they've said is that when monetization takes over, the actual game's content risks becoming, just a delivery mechanism for the store. And there's a real psychological concept behind why that grates on players, and yourself and myself included. See, as a player, we expect a game to be kind of, this magic circle we step inside of, and then we're just sealed off from the rest of the world. We're sealed off from everything, from the money, from the hustle, from the stress, from the chores, whatever it is. But when there's a battle pass timer or a limited time offer that pops up when you're halfway through a game or you're sat in a menu, it just punctures that circle, and it's just a little cognitive record scratch, a reminder that you're not actually in this world, you're sat in a storefront. It's the difference between a friend, inviting you round to play and a friend that's inviting you around and then trying to sell you a timeshare between the levels. So no, you're not entirely imagining it. The business model it's genuinely changed, and it's pretty reasonable to feel that. But you notice that what this isn't proof that games are less fun or less creative or less good, but it is proof that they're monetized a lot more aggressively. And those are two very different complaints. Your nostalgia has been quietly smuggling that second one in under the first banner without you even really realizing. So now we're at the point where I can actually talk about the turn, and this turn is the one that I didn't see coming when I started making this angry little video. For most of its history, nostalgia was considered a bad thing. It was literally considered negative. The word was coined by a 17th century doctor as the name of a genuine medical illness. It's a kind of dangerous homesickness. And for centuries, longing for the past was actually treated as a disorder that needed to be treated. Now, obviously, modern psychology has done a complete U-turn on that, and researchers now find that nostalgia is genuinely good for you. Study after study has linked it to real benefits. It lifts your mood, it makes you feel connected to other people, it strengthens your self of, your sense of who you are, and it can make life just feel more meaningful. One line of research frames nostalgia as a psychological tool that quietly restores your social, emotional, and existential resources as a self-repair kit that your brain needs and reaches for whenever you're feeling low, lonely, or a little bit lost. And this detail is the one that I love. When researchers dug into what people are actually nostalgic about in their gaming memories, it's very often it wasn't the game at all. It was actually the people. It was the sibling playing on player two. It was the LAN parties. It was the friends crowded around one screen. It was the group of the group chats that were popping off with you and your friends. It was the parent who didn't understand games but decided to buy you that console anyway. Which, it reframes this whole thing. Like when you say games were better back then, and a big part of what you're really probably meaning is when I was a kid, my friends were in the room and everything felt new. That's that's not a review of a game. That's a review of a feeling. And it's a real feeling, and it's a valuable feeling. The nostalgia isn't a bug in your judgment. It's just your brain handing you just something quite nice. So let's go back to the mystery at the start of this video, the one that unraveled the initial angry video that I was going to make as to why modern games suck. Why is every generation so certain that games peaked at 14 about a different set of games? Because games were better back then was never really a statement about games. It's a statement about you. It's your rosy retrospection curating a highlight reel. It's the reminiscence bump welding your teenage favorites into your identity, and novelty handing you a first time wonder because you can only ever experience this once. The golden age of gaming is real. It's just not a date. It's an age, and it's roughly the age of 14, and it's for all of us, and it's forever. Do modern games have real problems? I mean, yeah, sure, of course. The storefront in your pocket thing is a genuine issue that we should be concerned about, and it is worth pushing back on. But do modern games suck? I mean, probably not. It's mostly your own beautiful, generous, slightly dishonest memory doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's making your past feel like your home. So the next time you're about to declare that they just don't make them like they used to, and you can stop and think, yeah, I am completely right. They don't. But it's because you're not 14 anymore. And no game, however good, is going to fix that for you. So why don't you tell me down below, what's the game from your golden age? What's the one your brain has lovingly lied to you about? Name it. Wear those rose-tinted glasses with pride. And if you enjoyed this, there's definitely more where this came from. And as always, subscribing is free, unlike a battle pass. It takes 1 second. And I promise I won't try and upsell you anything else.